Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today, let me tell you about the last journey of my older brother, Dr. Ghulam Memon, who passed away on February 22, 2011. Since most of the family was not there, I think it is only appropriate that I share in some detail with you about what happened from my perspective in terms of the journey of my brother. In the afternoon of February 22, which I believe was Tuesday, I received a call from my daughter, Reshma, telling me that my brother had passed away in Preston. And I understand that she in turn had received a message through some cousins, and in fact the information had originated from Dr. Harun Muhammad, closest and dearest friend of my brother who lives in London, while my brother lived a few hundred miles away in Preston, in Lancashire, part of England. That was a very beginning of a sad period. After I recovered my senses, I telephoned Dr. Harun, who told me that the body had been discovered by the person who brought meals to my brother daily. And the body was at that time with the hospital authorities. My brother had informed me some time ago about his attorneys who would handle his affairs in Preston, since he lived all alone there. I telephoned Dr. Harun and gave him the information and the number of the attorney, Mr. Eric Gardner, from Marston law firm. There were a lot of telephone calls that day between me and the various family members in different parts of the world, as well as in England. I knew that my brother had made arrangements with a local masjid in Preston for his final journey, including the burial, but I did not know which mosque and I did not know which person to contact. But during the course of various phone calls, the attorney emailed me that there is a Mr. Baksh who is familiar with my brother and was making all the arrangements. The main issue right away was with when the funeral can be arranged, since the government needed to do post-mortem and then issue the death certificate, and the death certificate is usually issued only to next of kin. So there were a number of legal issues. Soon we agreed that we should aim at funeral arrangements for Friday after Namaz-e-Jummah. On February 22 and Wednesday, February 23, Alhamdulillah, with help of Brother Baksh from the mosque, whose full name is Yaqub Muhammad Baksh, and he is sort of making funeral arrangements at Jamia Masjid in Preston. It became hopeful that the formalities will be completed by Friday, and those of us who wish to participate should plan to be in Preston at that time. Alhamdulillah, myself, my son Noman, we left Washington for Preston on Thursday afternoon in order to arrive there about 8 a.m. on Friday, Preston, and this timing was considered reasonable by Dr. Harun, who was going to meet us in Preston, as well as Brother Yaqub Muhammad Baksh, who was arranging the funeral. I must share with you that this was all very tentative and uncertain as to how it will turn out. Again, given the fact that there was no family in Preston, and neither Dr. Harun knew the attorney or the mosque or Brother Baksh, neither did I, and neither did Brother Shafkat, our brother Shafkat, who was coming from Bahrain, arriving about the same time to attend the funeral. But Alhamdulillah, the miracles started to happen on Friday 24th morning when we arrived at the Manchester airport. Since Preston is a relatively small place and it's about an hour drive from the international airport, we arrived in Manchester. I had expected to find a taxi from there and go to Preston, but it was a pleasant surprise when I found somebody holding my name. That was Brother Yaqub Muhammad Baksh and his friend Dawood Asman. Both of these people are from Masjid-e-Jamia in Preston. They received us, me and Nomi, as family as family members. They embraced us in all sense of the word. They had brought their vehicle, they took our luggage. Shafkat had arrived a couple of hours earlier from Bahrain and left directly for Preston. We arrived in Preston itself, I would say about 9:45 or so, and Brother Yaqub took us to his home for a cup of tea before taking us to the mosque. We arrived at the mosque about 10:30, and by that time, in fact, about that time, a vehicle from the mosque had brought the coffin from hospital. By that time, Brother Shafkat was also with us. So Shafkat, Noman, myself, Brother Yaqub, Brother Dawood, and several people from the mosque. We helped to take the body from the masjid's vehicle to the washing room in the masjid. This is where, for the first time, I saw my brother Ghulam. MashaAllah, he looked so fresh. He had a long beard, as he had repeatedly told me on the phone. And I had understood from Dr. Harun that after his previous stroke, which he was unable to shave properly, and he had grown the beard. But mashallah, with the beard, he looked exactly like Baba Sai as I had seen him the last time. Of course, Baba Sai was maybe 10 years older than Ghulam Ali. At that, in terms of time of passing, but I was amazed at the resemblance. And mashallah, I had the privilege of starting to wash the body, since very quickly, in another half an hour or so, we had to go to the city council to get the death certificate and permission to burial in next few hours. These documents are required before a legal burial can take place. So Alhamdulillah, I wash Ada's face and head and the beard and one arm. He was on the washing table, and there was a long towel on top of him protecting his body, but the face, arms, and feet were visible. And about that time, I was asked to go with Brother Yaqub and others to the city council, and therefore I left the washing in the middle. Brother Shafkat stayed there, and we went for these certificates. Contrary to my expectation, Alhamdulillah, obtaining the certificate part went very smoothly. There was a kind young lady, deputy registrar, who interviewed us and asked various questions about Ada, his birth date, and place of birth, and his profession, and so on. And I signed as the applicant for the death certificate and the permission to bury. And we got that by 12:30. And when we returned to the mosque, the body was already washed and was in coffin properly inside the casket. And I viewed the body again and touched the face of Ada Ghulam Ali. And subhanallah, we expected the namaz-e-janaza to be after Jummah prayer at the mosque, but to our disappointment, we were informed that it is not allowed to, in Preston, to hold the prayer in the mosque, since there was a small mosque in the graveyard itself. I was informed that according to Sunnah of Rasulullah, the namaz-e-janaza had to be there in the graveyard. And while the namaz will be completed by about 1:30 or so, the prayer will be held at 2:30. And I must confess that myself, Shafkat, we both were extremely disappointed at this, because we were expecting participation of the large crowd, large number of Muslims who were present for Friday prayer. I went and talked to the Imam, and I talked to other people if an exception could be made, but they assured me that there had been announcement of this janaza prayer, not only at that mosque, Masjid-e-Jama, but at all the other masajid in Preston, and there are about 13 mosques. So they asked me not to worry about attendance. We did namaz-e-janaza, we did Jummah prayer, and then we stayed with the body and talked about arrangements and so on until it was time. We left the masjid about 2 o'clock for the graveyard. One of the new things that alhamdulillah I saw and participated in United States, body is taken in a special vehicle. Body is in the back. Maybe one relative sits in the front with a driver. But here, alhamdulillah, in this vehicle, which was made the same way except a little bit less formal, we were allowed to sit with the body. And myself and brother Shafkat and several members of the mosque, those people who had become our new close and dear friends in matter of couple of hours that we had been in Preston, they sat with us. We sat on the ground, and the coffin was laid out. I believe you have some pictures of that also. So whole way to the masjid, several of us were holding the coffin, touching it, and doing dua while we arrived at the graveyard. It's a beautiful graveyard with a nice fence, and it's just like a garden. as we arrived there, uh, we were surprised, pleasantly surprised, at number of cars and vehicles which were already there, and number of people who were getting out and going towards this little masjid. I would say there were several hundred people, and subhanallah, subhanallah, Friday, and even though prayers could not be held in the masjid itself, and yet there were so many people. And I must confess that with exception of 3 or 4 persons that we had already met or we were to meet in next 2-3 days, these people did not know our brother Ghulam Ali, or if they had met him, they could not connect the face and the knee. Brother used to attend this mosque for prayers, but for last couple of years, because of his stroke, he, even though alhamdulillah he was able to walk with a stick and so on, but he was not able to, my understanding is that he was not able to come to the mosque. In fact, I understand that on suggestion of Dr. Harun, as he told it, he had sent a message to this masjid that someone should come and meet him in the hospital when he had the stroke to discuss the possible future arrangements. And Brother Yaqub Muhammad Baksh and one other person whom we also met in the office of the masjid, they had gone, and Ada had discussed arrangements with them, and as needed had given a check for 300 pounds for the burial arrangements, and which these kind and gentle souls were so willingly and lovingly carrying out. Now, at the janaza prayer, we learned that there were going to be 2 prayers, one for Adasai and one for a 16, 17-month-old young boy who had also passed away. And alhamdulillah, it was inspiring. The Imam who explained the prayer and conducted the prayer, mashallah, did a very good job, did all the du'as. First prayer for Ada was held, then for the young boy was held. Then we took the body to the grave site, and again so many people joined us. It was so touching. The grave was ready. At the grave site, they opened the box, and in order to turn the face of the body to Kaaba, what they suggested and did was to put some mud from the grave, big pieces of mud from the grave, inside the coffin, and turn the body and supported it with this pieces of mud, so that the face will be tilted towards Kaaba. So alhamdulillah, we all participated in doing that. Then again, it was closed, and we helped to lower the body in the grave, it was done with the help of two bells. So if this is the grave and body was going inside, so there were two big bells were put on, which were held by so many people, and then body laid on these belts, and then slowly released so that the grave, that the coffin went in the grave. And then the usual how mitti is put on the grave to fill the grave. And we notice that apparently the funeral of the little boy, the burial took shorter time. So by the time we came to the final dua for Ada, which was being conducted by the Imam, the mourners, the people who had participated in other janaza also came and joined us. And so it was a huge crowd which, alhamdulillah, did prayer for Ada Ghulam Ali. And I also met a person, his name was Brother Islam, I believe is Muhammad Islam, something like that. Young man of about 40 or so. He said that his father had died a week earlier, and that his body is buried next to Ada Ghulam Ali's. So I was able to request him to please pray for Ada also and say salam to him also whenever he or his family came to visit their father. So inshallah, alhamdulillah, we were able to make acquaintance with the person who was buried next to him. Subhanallah, it was, I did not expect that things to go so well and in such an organized way. Million thanks to Masjid-e-Jamia in Preston, and especially Brother Yaqub Muhammad Baksh, who had made all these wonderful arrangements. Now, by this time, it was like 3:30, and we had our already an appointment with attorney of Ada, Eric Gardner of Marston Company, at 4:30. So again, Brother Yaqub took us to his house for lunch. It was a lovely lunch prepared with love for us, and we had the lunch, and by 4:30 we arrived at the attorney's office. This is obviously a big firm because it had a big building of its own, several attorneys, several offices, and there the attorney read the will of Ada Sain, and which is by now it has been copy has been sent to all the relevant family members. So next, the question was really here the legal process started. Nobody knew what Ada had left. We knew from previous discussion on phone with Ada at one time. He had informed me sort of sort of assets he had, which were mostly in bank accounts and certain investments, bank investments type of shares and those type of things. And of course I knew about his flat because Noman and I had visited the Ghulam Ali in summer of 1996. So we had seen the flat, and now at that point the attorney turned out that Ada had nominated Shaheen, myself, and two partners of the law firm as the executors of the will. And since Shaheen was not there, the responsibility was really on myself from the family and the attorneys to find out what assets he had left and how to get them to the rightful inheritors. This was again a very emotional moment. We got the keys and then went to Ada's apartment, and of course Ada was no more, passed away. And to enter apartment or home of Ada without him being there, and then try to find his papers and so on, was very difficult. By that time, Dr. Harun had left for London because following day, Saturday, he was scheduled to go for Umrah. So unfortunately, he could not stay. But then fortunately, we were able to contact him while he was still on train, and he gave us some ideas as to where these papers may be. Alhamdulillah, we thank Shafqat, Noman, and myself. We did find these papers. Some were in a particular suitcase, others were spread all over the apartment in form of piles of mail. Fortunately, Ada had prepared a list of his main assets, but the list was prepared about 8 years earlier in 2003. So at least he had given us a starting point, and indeed we found papers relating to those assets, and we found more which we added to the list, which Ada had prepared as an additional page. So we got some feel of Ada's main possessions. We returned to the hotel very late that Friday. I must say that Ada Shafqat had to leave Saturday in order to attend to his business and job in Bahrain. But Noman and I had planned to stay. Again, we had foreseen that maybe further meeting may be required on attorney on Monday. So we had planned to leave on Tuesday. And it was, alhamdulillah, this was a very good idea. Because one of the things we needed to do was to go back to the apartment and go through other possessions of Ada, especially since the apartment has been left to Ada Sikandar and Shaheen, who were not there. Uh, so try to see what they may want to keep, and certainly Ada's clothing, to see what of that can be sent to Shaheen or Sikandar through a parcel, and what could be given to charity and so on. So we had to Saturday go back to the apartment. I must say here, Noman showed more courage than I. I must say I was rather shaky and uncomfortable going through the these possessions of my brother. But we did sort some things, especially clothing. But we found, and by the way, we had went and purchased some plastic bags and so on, so that if some of these were to be sent to Pakistan, that they could be properly packed. And Brother Yaqub had found out that these bags will have to be delivered to Birmingham to some agency which sent these to Pakistan at a reasonable cost. So anyway, we went back to the apartment and we sorted the clothing. One pile, I did the initial sorting, one pile of things which might be sent, and another pile which would clearly not have any value in Pakistan. And then I stayed about an hour, but Noman stayed there 2-3 more hours to do the final sorting. And we were also looking for photo albums or other family items which could be which could keep the memories of Ada alive. So Noman did that, but Noman also came to the conclusion that in the clothes there was not really much that was worth sending to Pakistan. There was, I saw one new shirt which was still not opened, but rest of the things were basically used, and it obviously Ada had not been able to do much new purchase. This is in last 2-3 years since he was since his stroke, and he was confined most of the time to the apartment. But anyway, the clothes were left in the piles as we had sorted them, and we did not take any of those things, and the furniture and so on. So we felt that final decision should be made by Sikandar and Shaheen, who are the rightful inheritors of that. Then on the weekend, I must say, Brother Yaqub, Brother Dawood, Asman, and another brother who's Brother Uwais, who's a professor there. They kept us very busy, mashallah. And on Sunday, there was a Quran Khwani organized at the masjid in the afternoon, and in spite of the short notice, I would say 40-50 people participated. and read Yasin for brother Ghulam Ali, and the Imam did an elaborated dua for him, alhamdulillah. And from Ada's possessions, we took the liberty of giving about 500 pounds to the masjid in Sadqa Jariyah in memory of the brother for all the good that the masjid did, and also this will be a new wing of the masjid will be built, inshallah, which will benefit the community for years to come, and inshallah Ada's 500 pounds would go towards meeting cost of that. So inshallah that will be a good Sadqa Jariyah. I believe each day also we went to the graveyard and did dua even before Shafqat left, and other days we also went there, and even on even yesterday, which was Tuesday morning, before we left, we went and said salam and so on. The final important event was really on Monday, because we did meet the attorney and took 2 bags full of papers that we had discovered, so that the attorney could proceed to find the assets of brother. At that time, it was clear that Ada had left the apartment, and then these financial instruments. We made it clear to the attorney that the apartment belonged to Sikandar and Shaheen, and we will contact them, and inshallah in due course they will decide what to do with that. But attorney should make sure that all the current needs are met, namely if the insurance policy needs to be renewed, or if some electricity bill is to be paid, or whatever, to basically leave the place undisturbed. And about the other ones, we also try to discuss what his fees might be, and he was basically saying that he has to go over all these papers and see what will be required to complete the probate process and to collect, and then he will send a estimate of what will cost to us, which will be shared with all brothers and sisters. So that was basically the final event in terms of this particular journey. This was an eye-opening trip in a number of ways. The kindness of brother Yaqub Muhammad Baksh in particular, and the community of Jamia Masjid was very touching. It was like the family that we did not have in Preston, but Allah provided for us. It was also touching to see that my brother was only 2 years older than me, had passed away. So it showed me the limit of my own life, of how I am getting It also, there was important lesson in going through my brother's possessions to see what is all this. I mean, Alhamdulillah, he came to England, became FRCS, ENT surgeon, and spent his lifetime there. I hope and pray that he had satisfaction in his life, but then these are the assets. That's all. That's all. Few possessions. That's all that we can leave. And more importantly, after we are gone, how the inheritors or the family or others go through and search everything that you have collected, and how your clothes are separated and your papers are separated, and how the privacy is gone. I could never imagine that Ghulam would permit me to touch his things while he was alive. And yet this is something that had to be done. And with extreme reluctance, we did it. And may Allah raise the soul of our beloved brother Ghulam Ali, and place him in heaven. And may Allah show us the right path. May Allah allow us to learn the rightful lessons from this in order to improve our own remaining few days in this life. I must say I was very touched by the community there. They are basically all of Gujarat origin, and they belong to, there is a Tablighi Jamaat apparently very active in England, and there are many mosques are organized along those under guidance of that organization, and many beautiful mosques, especially Saturday and also part of Sunday and Monday. We were able to visit many mosques in Preston, and there is another town called Blackburn and Bolton. At least in these three towns we visited several mosques, beautiful mosques, and the mosques are surrounded by houses which are largely owned by the community members, who all seem to be very simple middle-class people, but very devoted to the mosques. There was very high attendance at each prayer in the mosque, and young boys, young girls, lot of dawah work being done. And masjids have features which I have not even seen in United States. Some masajid have not only the body washing facilities but also deep freezers. In one mosque we saw that 4 bodies could be stored. In the wuzu room, wuzu for the prayers, I saw there are hangers, permanent fixtures in the wuzu room, so you could take off your coat and hang, and then you do your wuzu. And there were in one masjid there was pile of fresh towels, small towels, so you dried your hands and face and so on with towel, and then you threw like you would throw in a 5-star hotel. And these people had washing machines and dryers right on mosque premises. They also had facilities for guests to come and stay in the masajid. Like different jamaats were coming, and in every mosque there was a jamaat. They had their own kitchen, and young people, old people, and how uh, they are living. It was all inspiring. This was a final journey of my brother, my beloved older brother, Dr. Ghulam Memon. I'm honored and I'm really glad that I got to participate in his journey. And I must say, I felt at home. I felt as part of him, as part of the